Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
It's a science fiction movie podcast, of course. We talk about science fiction films, and we're here today to talk about Interstellar, which was the vote winner over in patreon.com/MailFuzzTV every month. The $5 and up patrons get to vote between 4 films, and Interstellar won the vote for the month. So that is what we're going to talk about. It is almost impressive that we've gotten to 150 plus episodes and haven't done this. Just because it's one of the bigger sci-fi movies that came out in the past decade. It's, it's a Christopher Nolan sci-fi movie.
We gotta save something.
That's true, you gotta spread out the big ones. You can't do all the Christopher Nolan movies in the first week. As tempting as it would be.
For you.
So we'll start spoiler free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into the spoilers and the basic gist of this film. And this is actually one where, because I vividly remember this coming out. I was excited for it when it came out. So I vividly remember how much I didn't know going in. It was kept quite secretive before it came out. You know, other than the broad strokes of clearly Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway are going to go into space in search of other planets. But it was quite secretive aside from that. There's a lot of elements in this that when I saw it, I compared to other films that I didn't know about going into it. I didn't know I was going to be comparing it as much to something like a 2001: A Space Odyssey in some ways, or some other things. So, yeah, basically Earth is a shithole. There's dirt storms constantly. The food's not growing. Like, corn's the last thing that's growing properly, and even that days are numbered. So it's all about finding a new home, a planet that we can move to or colonize, and continue the human race in some form. So the stakes are high. Obviously plays with some very science fiction concepts. The idea of the time difference when you're near a black hole is played with, of course. We'll get into that. Some of the movie's most famous scenes come from that stuff. Hans Zimmer's scoring this, as he did for a lot of Christopher Nolan's films in this time period. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as well. So a lot to get into, a lot to talk about. And I'm very curious to see how Tara's going to start this, because I've not gotten the impression that Tara was overly fond of Interstellar from past interactions. So it is with bated breath that I await the answer to the question. Tara, what did you think of Interstellar?
I like Interstellar. I had it on my list when we did our top 50 of the decade.
Did you? Okay.
It's been a little while.
I guess maybe dislike or whatever was a strong word.
I can understand why you would think I was going in that direction, because I don't think that Christopher Nolan is God's gift to movies. And I don't like Anne Hathaway, and he keeps using her for some reason. I also think Matthew McConaughey...
She's only in 2 of his movies.
Yeah, it's enough. No more.
This was the last time. He's not done it since 2014.
Well, he must have got my letters then.
It's been 8 years. Get over it.
I also think Matthew McConaughey is kind of I don't know, he's hit or miss with me. I don't think he's bad in this movie, but there are points where I'm just I wish they cast someone else. Just because it's hard to separate the man from the actor, But it is a good movie. I'm not thrilled with the message of the movie or even the plot of the movie, but visually it's pretty spectacular.
I was wondering what was left. To be honest, I don't like the lead actor, the female lead actor. I don't like the plot. I don't like the message. Oh, but it looks quite nice. This is a nice
visuals are pretty spectacular. Exceptional even. You can tell there's a lot of practical effects to make something look very real, and just to make something that you've never seen before come alive. And even when we talked about it during our top 50 sci-fi movies for the decade, I brought this one up because the ideas that they came up with in order to create these other worlds are very unique and unusual and very fun to watch. The whole journey and stuff that they go through also is very, very, very well done. And the robots are amazing. They're the best part of the film. I think that's a good start.
Okay. What's funny is because I was super excited about this movie. I was super excited because this was coming after Dark Knight Rises, which I am in the camp of really liking Dark Knight Rises. I know that the internet does not necessarily agree with that statement, but I really like that movie, and I love Dark Knight. I loved Inception Inception is maybe his best movie. Tara can make a face if she wants, but but so it was kind of like, oh, Christopher Nolan's doing science fiction again, but this time it's space science fiction. He's going to space. We're getting a Christopher Nolan space movie, and I was like, oh, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. I remember the first teaser trailer being super effective because it's
driving like through the cornfield and stuff.
I don't even know if that was.
Zimmer.
I don't even think that was in that. It was that music, but I don't even know if the cornfield stuff was in that first trailer. I think the first trailer was almost nothing but stock footage of like rocket launches and stuff. But it was that music, and it was. I want to say it did have McConaughey giving his speech over it, maybe. But it was just like it was a very quick 1 minute, just like the adventure, the unknown of getting into space, and the wonder and the explorer kind of mentality of that feeling, and the idea that we've kind of like left that behind, but we have to sort of recapture it again. We have to do it again. That feeling from that teaser trailer, I remember feeling very effective, and the music was very good. And I remember being surprised when that turned out to actually be Hans Zimmer's music, because more often than not, the composer's not done any work in a movie yet, with a year in advance when the teaser trailer's going out. Usually they don't start working on the movie till much later. So the fact that that was actually an original piece of the score that is going to be in the film, and a heavy part of the score as well, just shows how early on Nolan got Zimmer involved, and he probably did that before he'd even seen any of the footage of the movie yet. So the teaser was great, the trailers were great, the marketing was good, it has a lot of good posters, there was a lot of like, oh, I like how everything looks. I was really excited to go see it. And I liked the movie when it came out. I went into it and really felt the spectacle and the razzle-dazzle. The visuals are amazing. I do remember coming out of it though and thinking that some of the concepts were very high concept. It was a lot more. I think because Christopher Nolan, up until that point, all of his science fiction was based very much in things feeling realistic, even if they weren't, but they would always be presented in a way where it was like, we're going to explain the technology, we're going to explain this, and this. And there's some big elements of Interstellar which are very fantastical, and it's very un-Christopher Nolan, I would say, in a lot of ways. And I remember not being sure how to feel about that, so there was kind of like a little part of it that I was like, I'm not sure if I'm in love with everything in the movie, but I like the journey of doing everything, and I still thought very highly of it, even if it was maybe ranking a little lower on my Nolan scale at the time. What's interesting is I hadn't actually seen it again until...
Is this your first time watching it again?
This is my second viewing of Interstellar, yeah. This is the first time I've watched it again. So I hadn't seen it again since the movie theater, and I was like, oh, I'm curious to see how I'm going to feel about this now, and I'm curious to see how I'm going to feel about certain things, and is it improved because I know kind of the ballsier places that it's going when I start versus the first time where it was a genuine mystery where I didn't really know the plot beyond just they're going to leave Earth, because they really kept it under wraps.
Right.
And I would say that I liked it more this time. I actually think I think the film's better for having and that's not to say that I would take away like that unknown factor I had that first time. I think that did give that viewing a special quality, but I think long term I like the movie more knowing the type of ideas that it's going to be pursuing and the direction it's heading in, because they are very fantastical. And I think on a first time viewing, if you're expecting the grounded, like gritty, cerebral sci-fi, you're not getting that. You're getting more of a philosophical science fiction film with Interstellar.
You know what kind of reminds me of with the, I mean, not the visually, but the concept is kind of like the 70s films that we watched where they're just these post-apocalyptic because we've run out of food. There's not enough food.
Sure,
We're
yeah.
overpopulated. We've ruined the planet, and how do we survive?
It kind of starts off that way, but then of course this is a modern film with a huge budget, so then it becomes a spectacular space movie as opposed to, oh, we've got a warehouse in the desert. Like kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't go full 70s, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the comparison there.
I was just thinking like No Blade of Grass or Ultimate Warrior. Like, there's so many movies from that time where it's just like, I don't know if it was so much about like global warming, but it was about, running out of food, overpopulation, CPG, stuff like that. It's just a concept that is very familiar, but obviously done in this modern, new way with a director who has vision and style, and more so than those movies in the 70s, although I love them. they can kind of blend together sometimes.
Yeah, you definitely feel like
You sort them by the decade rather than the director when they fall in that grouping.
Yeah, it's like director and loose subgenre. They kind of all sort of just bundled together, yeah. Yeah, because that's obviously, like, the idea is we're going to leave the planet, whereas unless you wanted a goofy spaceship set in those days, it probably wasn't going to be very good. Doing that concept. And I know we're saying 70s and that's after 2001, and I directly compared this to 2001 in a way before,
sure, yeah.
and that is a spectacular looking film, but that was like a one-of-a-kind auteur is doing 2001 in that time period. Like, that's not just every other movie can do that.
Also, it's a lot of practical effects that really paid off with a lot of time and great set pieces, and this movie has that too, a lot of very practical effects that look
obviously
good.
There's some CG because there has to be with the type of things. There's the planet with the water, for example. Like, there has to be CG with that. There's no practical way of doing that. But Nolan is very particular about using as little CG as possible. If he can do it without CG, he's going to make sure they do it. So there's models,
right.
there's practical effects, there's all sorts. There's miniatures, there's all sorts of things.
Well, I mean, even the robots in this are not very special effects heavy. They're mostly just blocks, and who would have thought that a block could look so good and be so practical in a movie, but for like a futuristic science fiction film,
hey,
it does look good.
I think you'll find Demon Seed said just a weird metallic shape.
I was thinking Demon Seed, actually, since this is the first time watching it since we watched that film. We're like, oh, there's a little bit of Demon Seed in this.
Just a smidge. Just a smidge.
Just a smidge.
Yeah.
I always appreciate a smidge of Demon Seed.
I think it's a really great movie. It's not perfect. I do think, like, the movie opens with these weird, like, interview segments that, even though there's, like, context for them, but by the time you get to the very end, I do think, like, because they come up a couple of times right at the start, and then they come up again, maybe like 5-10 minutes in, and then they never come up again until the very, very, very end, and you get, like, a context for where they come from. And
I forgot about those, actually, but I do like them in the movie because it makes it feel like, okay, he's trying to tell us that in the future we will look back at this time and, like, talk about it like it was something we got through as a species. But it sort of goes against the message of the film, which is like, let's get the hell off this planet. We can't save it anymore.
Well, it's all old people, so it feels very similar to people talking about World War II. Like, maybe not so much now because...
Or like the Great Depression or the Dust Bowl. I guess it's more the Dust Bowl. I'm talking about that.
Yeah, not so much now, but like, I think when we were in school in the 90s, like a lot of old people were, I'm not saying no one's alive from that period now, but there was a lot more old people alive in the 90s that went through World War II. So there was I remember a lot of talking heads and documentaries watching in school that were people in their 70s and 80s or whatever, talking about their experience surviving the Blitz and things like that. That really felt like it to me, because I think there's like one old woman here is talking about, oh, we used to have to wear these masks, and obviously we're doing it for a different reason, but I mean, yeah, we all relate to that now. But it reminded me a lot. I had this deja vu specific memory of an old woman who probably looked very similar to this old woman, talking about how they used to eat a lot of spam in the UK in World War II. For whatever reason, spam was one of the main things that were being distributed as rations. I don't know if the movie needs it, though. I don't know if the movie's improved by having these segments at the start.
I think maybe you're right. If it was something that really followed through a bit more, that it would feel more cohesive. And otherwise, because you do kind of forget about it. This is something I forgot was in the movie. And even while I was watching the movie, I forgot that was there until they sort of come back at the end a little bit, but not like really, not in a big way.
Because you go so long without them. And I think... because when it starts up, I went, oh, he's doing a District 9. Because the first sci-fi movie I think of that has this sort of like fake interview, well, not fake, but like in-universe documentary interview segments is District 9. But that keeps it up the whole way through. It presents itself like a documentary for the vast majority of the film. It has that kind of structure and that kind of vibe.
Plus you follow like a news reporter, so it kind of it fits in with the theme of the film.
Whereas this, like, you have a little bit of at the start and then it goes away, and then the movie just plays out normal. And obviously there's some exposition in those opening interview segments, but I don't think you need it, like, because I was actively thinking, knowing that they were going to disappear, because I remembered, I'd forgotten they were there, but then when they popped up I remembered they disappear after the first couple of minutes. I thought, oh, I'm going to pay attention to all these scenes at the start and see, do you need those interviews to explain the world? And you don't. Look, you get enough from the way McConaughey talks to his kids, or John Lithgow, who's like the father-in-law, or the way he talks to the teachers. Like, all of the essential information that we need to understand where the world is in all those conversations. And not in like a super exposition-y, awkward way. Like, it's all very naturally in there because of what the issues that are brought up and how they're dealing with the kids and so on and so on. So I don't necessarily think they need to be there, so I probably would take those out. And it's not that I necessarily don't like the idea of having that old-timey documentary feel that it kind of starts off with, but if it wasn't going to commit to it as like a core aspect of the movie, I think I would take it out, because if anything, it just spoils that on some level they succeed because there's people to talk about it.
Yeah, I wish, honestly, I do like them. I wish there was just more of them in there. Like, I wish there was, I wish there was more of a point to them being there other than setting up the film, which we also get anyway when, like you were saying, when we see the characters interact with the world and with other characters in the film.
I mean, that's probably the easiest thing I can look at and say that's a problem I have. Like, it's something that I would just completely cut out. There's definitely a couple of like monologues or lines of dialogue that I would tweak. There's definitely a couple of moments like that, but I don't think conceptually or from a message point of view. I mean, I don't know if the message that you don't like is necessarily the message that I took from the film, though. So I don't want to say I disagree with you, because it might be slightly something different.
What do you think of McConaughey? I'm curious.
Well, what's funny about McConaughey is that before this movie, he was the rom-com guy. I had never seen him in anything, I don't think.
Well, Frailty and stuff.
I'd never seen Frailty at that point.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see Frailty until... I don't think I saw Frailty till after. But even if I saw Frailty, that would have been the one exception. Because everything else, I never seen these movies, but he was in Failure to Launch, How to Lose a Guy, and blah, blah, blah. Or, I don't know if that was him, but I think that was him.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, yeah.
Like, those types of movies. Like, he was in lots of those.
Well, Dazed and Confused.
But I'd never seen that, and I'd barely heard of it when Interstellar came out. It was off my radar, right? So sure. I didn't know about it. So McConaughey to me was just this rom-com guy. That's why it kind of became this phrase online. We're going through the McConaissance, because he was going to be in this and then something. I think True Detective was around the same time. So there was kind of like this, he's proving that he's like a proper actor. Like he's in one sort of swell swoop. He's doing all this. I think he's fine in the movie. I actually kind of like that he is a bit different. He does feel like... What's odd is that he doesn't like that he's having to farm, because part of the world is that everyone's kind of become a farmer, because that's what everyone needs.
Out of necessity, yeah.
They don't need more engineers, they need farmers. So he's a farmer now, but he was going to be a pilot for NASA. That's what he dreamed of being. So he was good at, as far as he got before it all stopped, he was very good at it. He had a very promising career, and then it all just went away because the world said, no, we need farmers. What's funny is I actually think he feels like someone who belongs on a farm. And I just mean he looks and sounds like someone who would work on the land. He looks like someone who knows how to ride a horse and like do crops.
I guess I always picture him as like more of a California surfer kind of guy, but he does have that accent. Like, he wasn't born in California, but he moved to California to become a surfer.
He's a Texan.
I don't know what it is about McConaughey. Like, I do think he's a good actor. Like, I do think he's genuinely a great actor. Even like, he deserves his Oscar he got for Dallas Buyers Club. It was a great movie. I mean, we do know him from other films, like, he was in Contact. I mean, that came before this, and I love him in Contact. I think he's perfect for that role. Reign of Fire, I like a lot with him in it. But otherwise, like, he became famous because of his the dream Texan guy with the pretty face. And
I had seen Contact probably before this, but I'd have forgotten about it already, and I assumed that when I saw Contact I didn't know who he was, so I didn't remember.
I probably knew him first from that, yeah. And then Frailty was like this this blockbuster video rental that I got, and I thought was such a gem, and I showed it to people that I loved that film. I don't know, like, there's something about him and his... it's hard for me to separate McConaughey from like any other character that or this character that he plays. Like, I just see McConaughey in it so much. It's hard to put my finger on exactly what it is. You remember when he gave his Oscar speech and he said, like, you know, everyone comes up here and they all want to thank their heroes, and I'm going to thank my hero today, and it's me because I did all the work myself. And that kind of just like put a stank on him that I wasn't able to shake after that. And I do think he's a great actor, and I enjoy watching him, but I don't know if he's right for this role. There's something, you know, he gives it his all, and I think he's good in it. But there's just I don't know, man. I just don't think he's right for it. I think maybe he's miscast. Like maybe you're right. Maybe he is a farmer, and he comes off too much as a farmer and not as a pilot or something. That
I don't have this problem, and I think any qualms or like concerns I would have had about him in the role, I think go away because the performance is good. I think the scenes with him and Murph, or the famous scene that's been memed to hell, which is him getting the video calls when he's in space. I won't say what they are. I won't say what they are yet.
Great acting in that. Yeah.
But those moments are exceptional, and that doesn't matter at that point. Like I'm in. Like I'm too into like like even if he's still just Matthew McConaughey. Well, I'm invested now in Matthew McConaughey getting back to his kids. Like I'm invested now in that goal.
Let's get back to Renesmee and Timothée Chalamet.
So it doesn't. Who?
Renesmee.
Who's Renesmee?
Isn't it the girl from the Twilight movies? The baby. The weird vampire baby. I haven't watched the movies. You've watched the movies.
I haven't got to a vampire baby yet. And why would Jessica Chastain be playing a vampire baby?
Renesmee is the girl, the young girl.
What?
The actress who plays Murph is in the Twilight movies.
Oh, the young. I'm talking about Jessica Chastain. Like, I don't know who plays the young girl. What
I thought you watched all the Twilight movies. I
haven't seen them all
stream.
yet. I've only seen the first 3 so far.
Well, there's a Renesmee.
Why would you think I'd remember a character like if it's
because
not?
I've never seen the last Twilight films. I've only seen the first 2, but I know the name Renesmee because when the book came out, and they're like, what are they going to name their kid? Spoilers. They came up with the name Renesmee, and it became like a popular baby name for a little bit, and it's just such a horrible name.
Only you will try and reference something that I've seen, and then fight me on the fact that I can't remember something in it because you've heard of it.
Look, this was a big thing. This was a big deal, okay?
But how is she?
I only know of it because it was a big deal.
But how is she Renesmee? She's far too old to be a baby, even like a few years before this.
I don't know. I haven't watched the movies, but I'm pretty sure she's the baby, and her name is Renesmee, and she's a weird vampire blade hybrid. She's a great actress in this. I think she's very good. She has to cry a lot, and it's very emotional.
Timothée Chalamet is basically a non-factor. He's just kind of there.
Yeah. It's just, now he's just kind of like, oh, look, that's Timothée Chalamet.
Which is not a complaint of the performance or even the writing. He's not supposed to be an important part. He's the brother. The story revolves around Murph. That's just how it is. But he just happens to be an actor who will go on to be more famous. You got John Lithgow in there. He's solid enough. And you got Michael Caine in a small role because Nolan loves working with Michael Caine.
Who has eaten a lot of okra. Well, he's got a little bit of a tub going on for a planet that's running out of food.
People can have other reasons why they're gaining weight. Some people gain weight easily.
It's true. Yeah, he's under a lot of stress.
Yeah. Not everyone who's overweight is because they stuff in their face with cheeseburgers and chocolate. What about the music? Hans Zimmer, the score, possibly one of the best things he's done with Nolan. And that's saying something because I love the Dark Knight trilogy scores. I love his Inception score. But I have to say that this film is elevated the entire time because of Zimmer's music.
I mean, yeah, I remember the music standing out from the trailer as well, and it is very good. I mean, when you have so many scenes that take place in space where there's no sound and stuff, and you're just kind of relying on the music to draw in the atmosphere, and it's Hans Zimmer. He's one of the greats, and this score I think is also exceptional. Yeah. But
it's very experimental for him, I think, because there's a lot of Zimmer scores that sound similar. They're like, And especially from certain eras where there's a lot of stuff where you can say, okay, that's 2010's Hans Zimmer because there's a lot of drums and there's a lot of this. If you go
That's
back,
Crimson Tide.
if you go back to like the early 90s, you hear a lot of more like tuned percussion and electric guitar. Like he's got these eras, and you can definitely hear little motifs that he kind of like borrows and like uses again in movies and things like that. You can definitely recognize his stuff. And I'm not saying there's no signifiers that this is Zimmer in this, but this organ style sound that he's got going at points in this, and this overall dreamlike and sort of this quality that's there, that's about the adventure and just how gargantuan and like how minuscule we feel in the awe of like the vastness of space, and that like the unknown and like the whatever's out there that we might find. That feeling that this sort of has, and I think that's why he's went with sort of an organ, because organs you associate most commonly with either a church or a church-like setting, so you associate it with things like worship, and you associate it with biblical and big ideas. So I think the idea of like taking that and putting the organ into the score to treat space and the unknown of what's in space as kind of our main character's religion, because it kind of is, the way he talks about space and going to space and what it means to him, and how important that he thinks that we still study space and still explore. Like the idea of like making that sound like it is his church music, if you will, for lack of a better term, I think is quite inspired, and it does sound very distinct, and it fits really well into certain action sequences. There's a very great action sequence about 2/3 into this movie where the music is blasting, and it is, watch this movie loud. It deserves to be watched loud. My subwoofer was going nuts, and I do not feel any bit of ounce of sympathy or remorse for my neighbors. Deal with it.
These are big ideas, and not just a quick journey in a car somewhere across a cornfield. We're dealing like with space and feeling like something is bigger than yourself, or bigger, like when you think about space, you tend to feel very small, and the space is so big, and the music has to be big. And I like the connection with the organ and like God and just big ancient ideas, making something feel a bit more timeless and experimental. I think that's very cool.
And what's interesting is, like, I don't think the subject of religion is actually that heavily used in the film. It's not completely ignored by any means, but I would say that it's more about like the belief of how we advance as the human race and what we should do next, rather than it being about clashing the beliefs of this versus actual religion. I don't think it's making that comparison or debate necessarily, but just the music sort of drawing that thematic link in our head to this character and this type of experience as a religious experience to him. And so that works. That's really good.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the character also is that he's holding on to these this belief that humanity left something very important about itself behind in order to focus on something that was necessary, but like if you let go of those dreams, those ambitions, then you might as well just kind of die out. And he's saying like maybe these things that we ignored are actually going to be the things that save us.
It's not enough to just survive. We have to do more than that. The design of things like the ships and obviously we said the visuals were really nice. Space looks great. The planets look great. But I do think the ships look nice in the sense that they feel like just near future, in the sense that they're a bit more advanced, but they still look kind of what you think something NASA would make. They still have this sort of similar color scheme. They still have
a very tactile feel to them also. Yeah. And the suits too, like everything looks like not too distant future.
Yeah, and the technology that's in the robots and things, like everything's very easy to understand because it is all just a little bit ahead. It's nothing's like they don't whip out like a little nanobot microwave that like will make something. It's not like a replicator from Star Trek where suddenly there's something that we just can't envision. It's stuff like when he's talking to like Tars the robot and he's asking things like, "What's your honesty setting at?" and he says 90%. We understand what that means. Like, there's no explanation needed. It actually just makes sense. Like, there's a little bit of leeway for him to lie if he feels like he should, but otherwise he's completely honest. And his humor setting and all. Like, it's very easy to just imagine like setting the sliders on like your computer for, how often you get this color background, because if you want it to cycle, It'll just, you know, it'll do it based on an algorithm, and you go from there.
Love a good robot design, and I think this one is very good.
It's very unique. Yeah. I remember seeing it and not knowing they were going to be in the movie. So I think especially when you see like Tars and the other robots walking, it's
yes.
like, oh, that's cool. Like they have this.
There's a little bit of like a Gumby element to them, just because of their shape, but they are actually quite useful and maneuverable, and they can do a lot more than you expect.
Yeah, because at first they just look like a rectangle.
A wall that just moves. Yeah.
At first it was like a rectangle, but then you realize it can sort of it can move. It's like 4 rods effectively that can move independently, and then like the ones at the side can like bend, so they can sort of roll and move quite quick.
Smaller bits that come off of them too, much like in Demon Seed.
Yeah, so it's just a fun thing. And the voice of Tars, who's the main robot, is Bill Irwin, who I actually didn't really know when this movie came out, but I've since seen him on things like Legion, and he was just in the Dropout show that launched on Hulu.
Yeah, I know who he is. He's Sukal in Discovery, isn't he?
Does he wear a lot of makeup in Discovery?
Yeah. So he's the one that Saru has to go. He's the one that caused the burn.
Ah, okay. I don't think I ever knew that was him, to be honest.
Yeah, he's under a lot of makeup, and I always remember him as the Harry's alien dog that comes through the portal in Third Rock from the Sun and just acts like a human dog.
Oh, that is him. So it says a lot that I could picture him in Third Rock from the Sun, which I've not watched in years, than I could an episode of Discovery from last year.
He's hysterical in that role.
He's actually not changed that much, despite the fact that was the 90s.
You're right, yeah.
He's a bit older, obviously, but he's not actually changed that much visually.
He's great in The Dropout. I've been watching that series, actually. If anyone has made any cameo in Third Rock from the Sun, that's immediately who I think of. Even John Lithgow, who was the star.
I mean, William Shatner was in that as well.
Yes.
So
he's the big giant head, and then he's Captain Kirk.
All right, I think we could give the spoiler warning and start talking about the movie properly without the shackles. So let's do it.
Just fly free.
So I think the 2 big things we need to talk about is the overall idea of us from the future, like sending back help because we have to help humanity like advance. And then the idea that eventually McConaughey is going to do that to Murph, and that kind of explains, you know, quote unquote, the ghost that she thinks she experiences in her bedroom as a kid, because some books fall off the shelf, and it ends up actually being like a message in binary and stuff like that. And that's some of the early mystery of the movie, and it's like, that's kind of weird. What's going on here?
Ghost in a sci-fi movie?
Yeah. So obviously I'm like, okay, there's going to be an explanation for this. And honestly,
Nolan, so it's probably going to have to do with time.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, is like, it's not, I wouldn't call this a time travel movie, even though technically there's a little bit of like time travel messaging going on by the end, but it's definitely not a time travel movie. I would never class it as that.
I wouldn't, no, it's not going on our list.
No. I did have that feeling, I think the first time I watched it, when they're talking about the quote unquote the ghost, and I'm like, why do I get a feeling that later on in the movie this is going to be either him or someone else?
Because the ghost like actually does give them a message, you know, and it's something that's readable and something that translates to something that they can read specifically and takes them to a place.
Because I do remember actually very vividly having a problem with it early on in my first viewing and thinking them getting coordinates from this weird message and that leading them to, oh, this is the secret NASA base where they're going to launch this mission. That feels super convenient to me. Like I remember feeling this was a little bit contrived, but by the time you actually get to later on, and it's like, no, he is telling himself where to go because he needs he needs this to happen. I was like, okay, all right, it doesn't feel contrived anymore because he's actually telling himself, no, you need to go specifically here. You specifically go here. But in the moment earlier on when they go up to the gate and the guards come out and it's like, wait, he's already here. This is how he gets involved with the secret NASA program.
NASA's so close.
Yeah, it was kind of wild to me at the time, but then it kind of makes more sense by the end. I think there was a moment the first time I was watching this where when he gets to NASA and they're sitting explaining to him, yeah, space travel has publicly been outlawed and no one talks about it, but in secret, because unfortunately we have to accept that this planet is doomed and that there'll be no food in a number of years, that we are also working towards something, but it has to be in secret because the public perception of spending all this money on stuff like this would not go down well.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that you've came to us when we really need like a pilot, and because that is a line where McConaughey says, you know, I never actually left the atmosphere, like I never did that. And Michael Caine goes, yeah, but the other pilots here have never even been out the simulator, so that makes you the most like qualified pilot on the planet.
Yes, and he and Michael Caine like have a history together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like he was part of that program or whatever for pilots, and so you think you would like reach out to him or something then, but since he's so close, like you didn't even have to fill up their gas tank to go there.
Well,
to go to NASA.
I think the implication is that when his wife died, you know, Matthew McConaughey's wife passed away, that I don't know if that happened before or after he left NASA, when he was told that, okay, no, everyone has to just go and be farmers now. But the idea is that he didn't even know where he was. I think Michael Caine even says something like that, is that he didn't even know if he was alive. Like, he didn't know where he was.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah. They're explaining stuff to him, right? And eventually they reveal, like, yeah, these gravitational things that are happening, they're messages, like someone's reaching out to us. And at one point they say them, and he's like, who's them? And it's like, oh, like they're pointing towards this black hole that appeared, you know, I think it was like 40 years ago, next to Saturn. And immediately I went, all of a sudden I'm getting major 2001: A Space Odyssey vibes from this, because there's beings.
They said Saturn and not Jupiter.
That doesn't make a difference. Like, but all of a sudden there are beings that are more advanced than us, drawing us out into a part of space to potentially like advance us to the next stage of what we're going to do. In this case, it's maybe moving to another planet or whatever. But immediately I was getting, and obviously it's very different from 2001. And by the end of the movie, there's an answer of like who these beings are, and it actually plays into some other sci-fi concepts of like us ascending to like a fourth and then ultimately a fifth dimensional being. Is that eventually human beings are going to be so advanced that time is just a dimension that they can sort through and all the rest of it. And this was the stuff that on the first viewing, I think when I got to the point where McConaughey was like surrounded by like the timeline of his daughter's bedroom, okay, this is kind of neat, but it might be just too wild for me to like. I wasn't expecting this from this movie.
I still kind of feel that way when I watched it this time. Like, it's not my favorite part of the film is the ghost stuff and the messages that are coming from him and him going around and narrating, like, for our sake, everything that he's seen. I understand why it's there because it has to be there. It's how their journey begins and we have to have an answer for it. But, like, it's just so specific to him that it's hard for me to just accept that all these big ideas and stuff are just narrowed down to him and his daughter's love. Like, it's just such a tiny moment. I don't know. It's a lot to accept.
I would agree that it's not my favorite thing about the movie, but it did work for me better this time. I think knowing where it was going, and also this idea that, because he has a line specifically, because he's talking to Tars. He's not just talking to himself. I think that's notable. He's talking to Tars, who's also trapped in there with him somewhere. He says, they didn't pick me. The reason why they've presented him with this, because it's not like this is a timeline where he could just wander off and all of a sudden he's going through time in another part of the planet. They've given him just a timeline of his daughter's bedroom. The whole idea is that they picked her because she's the one who can solve the math problem, right? Because Michael Caine's been trying for years to solve this math problem. She's going to be the one to solve it. And to do that, she needs data that you can get from inside a black hole, which Matthew McConaughey, because of what he's just done, Tars has recorded the data that she could potentially use to solve this gravitational equation that will help save people on Earth and give them a lifeboat, effectively. I know you're going to complain later. You don't have to do it now, but you're going to complain later about Anne Hathaway's speech about love. I know you're going to do it. But here's the thing. I actually think the theme of love in this film is handled very well in every other respect other than that speech. The idea that Matthew McConaughey loves space and loves exploration, and the idea that that's what's going to save the world, and not what the practical thing is. It's what the love that drives them to do this. And he has that argument with the teachers where he says, no, space travel brought us MRI machines. It brought us like tons of things that we would never have discovered or invented if the space race and space travel didn't exist. Excellent point. But it's what he loves. It's the idea that our love as human beings drives. This is the thing. This is the most sentimental Nolan film by far. But our love drives us forward into new things and discovering new things. And obviously the idea that Anne Hathaway wants to, you can only go to one of the 2 planets that are left, they'll get fuel for one, and she wants to go to the one because she kind of is in love with the guy who went there. But the other one that Matt Damon's on, spoiler, Matt Damon's in it, but the other one that Matt Damon, which by the way, I did not know he was in the movie when I saw it the first time. That was a surprise.
And this kind of started the trope of surprise Matt Damon.
Yeah, surprise Matt Damon. But so she wants to make that choice based on love, and it turns out to be the right planet at the end, right? It turns out Matt Damon's been a lying scumbag, and that was the right planet. But then it proceeds into this, where the reason why this is going to work, right? And McConaughey, who says this, is like, well, this all, because he puts the message, the data gets put in Morse code into the watch. The second hand is like doing the message. And it's like, well, how do you know she's going to take the watch? And his answer is, because I gave it to her, because of love, because what separates us from other beings or separates us from other things is that, you know, forget Anne Hathaway's speech about love being this tangible thing. It's, you know, well, does it function and all that? But the idea that
love works like gravity.
But because we care about things, because we do form attachment to people, that she will pick up that. Because it's almost like in other movies they might call it fate, and I think this is actually kind of a nicer way to look at it, because we are motivated by love often. We often do things for our loved one, or because we don't want to be lonely anymore, or because we seek that kind of feeling. And so much of the movie, and him like missing these kids' childhoods and missing like most of their lives even, all of that stuff, it all kind of boils back down to that theme. So it is there throughout so many facets of the plot in the film, and so much of like rooting for characters to make the choice to go back into the bedroom. She almost didn't have the watch. It was sitting in her old bedroom where she'd left behind for years, and it was only because she went back in and tried to like figure things out again eventually, and by luck she did make the choice to take the watch. But if she wasn't mad at her father for leaving, which is what she was, so she hated the fact that her father was leaving her behind, because she was close with him and she felt abandoned. If she hadn't felt that way, she probably would have just kept that watch initially. She would have kept it on her the whole time, because it would have been this heirloom, it would have been this thing. But it was the thing he gave to her before he left. It was this meaningful thing. I guess the message that I would say the film is giving, ultimately, is that sometimes the purely practical thing versus something you do out of love, the thing you do out of love is actually something that you shouldn't just abandon that, because that's what makes us human. Like, and I think that is a very nice thing to say. And I don't think the movie's message is just abandon the planet. The movie is presenting as a status quo where the planet is already doomed. Like, it's not saying, like, obviously, yes, we are all about, like, protecting the planet. We're all about improving things. But this movie's saying, no, it's already past that point of no return. People are getting sick. Food's running out. There has to be a solution. So I don't think the movie's trying to say that's just abandon Earth. I don't think that's the point at all.
I mean, Michael Caine has the line, it comes up many times, of, you know, humans were born here, but we were never meant to die here.
That's not Michael Caine.
Well, it's someone in the film.
It's the main character. It's Matthew McConaughey says it.
I thought Michael Caine said it also, and then it was something that he repeated, because that's why he goes on the mission.
Nah, because it's Matthew McConaughey says it in the trailer, and then it's on the poster as well.
Yeah. Well, right. But like, I'm pretty sure Michael Caine says it also.
No, Michael Caine repeatedly says I will not go quietly into the good night, yada yada. He says that a lot.
As well. I guess that ties into well, it's not biblical, it's just a poem. Yeah, I mean, that's why I like movies like Tomorrowland also, where it's just like, yes, we should be inspired and want better for our children, and, you know, set up success for the race to continue on, the human race. But, you know, don't give up on the planet, because we're not the only ones who live here. You know, I do appreciate the themes of this film of love. I actually really do like that message. I don't want us to think that the future of humanity is going to Mars and terraforming, or going to find another planet and starting over and screwing up there. That's why people love America so much. You know, America represents, well, we can start fresh. We can come here. We have a blank slate. We can make a new government, and it's all going to go perfectly. And look where it's gotten us. You know, we're still screwing it up even faster than other countries. So I don't know. I don't think that. Obviously, it's not important to this film, because this movie, like you said, is already past the point of no return. It's just not a message I love. of giving up on your planet.
I don't think that's I don't think that's a message in the film, though. I think there's just something at the core concept that kind of bugs you a little bit because you don't like this idea in general.
Look, I love my planet. It's my favorite planet in the solar system, and I love astronomy.
I disagree that is even like a message in this film. It's just, it's not really
it's in the subtext, you know. It's a lot of people like Musk and stuff wants to go to Mars, wants to terraform Mars, and say, and everybody. It's such a there's just this appeal to starting fresh, you know.
No, I think you're imprinting just things onto this. I don't think this is in the movie.
Well, I mean, maybe I am, but like, even if I am, this movie's bringing it out of me because it's just a pattern I see in a lot of sci-fi or people who just talk about things like, wouldn't it be great when, you know, we can leave Earth and we can have another planet that we can start over on?
Or you could take it as a warning that things may get this bad that we have to rely on leaving Earth when maybe we shouldn't.
Well, I mean, yeah. That's why I kind of like the whole, you know, parallel with the Dust Bowl message of like, we screwed up when we got here and we created a big mess because we did too many monocrops and screwed up the environment to where we couldn't grow crops for a long time. But, you know, we sort of got through that time and came out better because we focused on it rather than trying to run away from it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't think the movie's about that. It's there as a plot backdrop to set up what the movie wants to talk about, but I don't think the movie's actually about that.
I wouldn't say it's about it either. I mean, it is still, it's still there. It's still something I think of when I watch it.
Yeah, which is why I kind of knew actually like, earlier on when in spoiler free, and I was saying I don't want to say I disagree that I like the message and you don't, because I didn't think we were talking about the same things, and I was right because you're talking about this and I'm talking about no, the film's actually the actual message of the film is what I was talking about with the love and the you know, not just taking the practical cold-hearted route. Like, being connected to things is what makes us human and what makes us feel special, and that's what gives us humanity, is caring about each other. It's not just about like, okay, it's one thing to say, yeah, the human species will get to survive because we'll grow some new people on a colony, but everyone on Earth is doomed. Like, that's kind of, I mean, look at it that way, is that it, like, the whole idea of the film where, okay, plan A is to somehow turn this big station that's been built as a building and use the gravity equation to get it off Earth and save everyone on Earth that way. Take that as a metaphor for not abandoning what we already have. And plan B is the colony, which is the new thing out there in space somewhere. I know technically, in literal sense, yes, we're abandoning the planet because it's already doomed, but take the plan A, saving the people already there, is saving Earth. That's saving the people of Earth. So that's what that represents.
Yeah, it's still just saving the humans.
I'm sure they brought some animals.
There aren't any animals. Everybody's probably eaten them all. That's why they have to just eat corn and okra. Have you ever had okra?
No. Huh.
You'll hate it. It's
I'm sure
it's made of slime on the inside. It's a vegetable made of slime.
Yeah, it sounds disgusting. I don't want it.
I do really like the whole theme of like not giving up on the fantastic, you know, of just like, well, it seems totally absurd that we could ever travel that far into space, so let's just give up on that completely and focus on what's important. I do think that needs to be there also. We need to have, you know, motivation to keep going and to dream big and to aspire to something bigger.
Yeah. And also, like, just in case anyone sort of like brings this question up, I don't know if people think about this when they watch this movie, but obviously the idea that if humans from the future, in whatever version of our existence that exists where we've ascended like Ironheart in Babylon 5 as a superior being.
Gary Mitchell.
Or Gary Mitchell. Like, well, obviously if we never sent the black hole up in the first place, then we wouldn't be able to travel to a planet and therefore we wouldn't survive. But that's the thing, when we advance to this fifth dimension form of existence, time to us at that point is not going to be, like, time is something we can move through. So it's not actually, because normally when we talk about time travel, you talk about, oh, well, this would never happen if Kyle Reese never came back in time and impregnated Sarah Connor. Like, normally that's some sort of a time loop thing you can talk about. I feel like in this it's a little bit different because it clearly says that for these beings, for us in the future, eons in the future, I assume, like millions, billions of years maybe in the future, time at that point is something you can just move around at. So it's not a big deal to us in the future that, oh yeah, we have to go back and do that to make sure. Whatever.
It's true. The one thing where I thought it was odd is they gave us multiple planets that we could pick from, where clearly they know which planet we would go to, or the one that we need to go to survive.
Well, what Define gave us?
Well, because so the black hole leads to 12 different prospective planets, but we don't have the resources to go to all 12. So we have the resources to go to one solar system that has 3 planets nearby. So we can send one ship, and then hopefully one of those 3 will be right for us. But like, why wouldn't they just say like, this is the planet you need to go to? Because it's the one where we get to and then we survive.
Well, it's not. I guess I suppose you could ask, why not just tell them? I mean, maybe part of the, because they know it's important that the struggle has, like, they have to achieve it. It's not just like a thing, but
1 out of 12 is risky.
But until you said that, though, it's not like they give them 12 planets to go and explore. There happens to be that many planets that surround this planet that's the important one. Like, they've given them a black hole that, like, they can get them to the one planet they need to get to, but it's not like they could, like, and again, let's just actually specifically say, these other planets, ignore those other 11. Like, those 11 aren't important. If anything, the complaint I would have about the planets is more just, there is one moment where, like, I think they come across a little bit silly, the humans in the film, is like, after they visit the water planet, the first planet they go to, and they say, yeah, this was never viable because it's too close to the black hole. I'm like, didn't you know it was close to the black hole before you went down there, or maybe even before you came out here? Like, why is this a shock to you that it's too close to the black hole to be a home?
Well, because they were getting messages though, right?
They were getting messages, yes.
Yeah.
But they never seem to consider that because of the time difference, because this planet was so close to, because this is where they lose a lot of years on Earth, because they're so close to the black hole that 1 hour down here is years and years on Earth. And they never occurred to them that because of the time difference, like, this woman who landed here did die probably in, like, maybe 20 minutes, but because of the time difference, it was beaming back messages for a decade.
Yeah.
I'm probably off. I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Well, they say when they get there, like, she probably had just got there before we landed.
Yeah. Which is why, like, the wreckage of our little, like, transmitter was still, like, easy to find, because it wasn't. Yeah, because it'd only been a few minutes since it got hit.
Presumably her body would be around there too.
Yeah, but those waves are pretty big. I can buy it got
very big.
I actually do love this. I feel like I'd never seen this before in a movie, is the idea of the big giant slow wave, because it's not a tidal wave, it's as tall as a tidal wave, but it's just a regular wave.
Point Break. But yeah, you're right, it's just a big it's a wave, there's no crest.
Yeah, it's basically just the idea that
I think that's the word I'm looking for.
The gravitational pull is obviously so huge that the waves, compared to the waves that we have in the ocean on Earth, it's just that big. That's just how big the waves are. It's these big.
I like that they like stand in the water too, like it's only a foot deep when it's low tide.
Well, that's because the waves are so big that it's sucking up all the water.
Because it looks like just a water planet. Like, where are they gonna land? On the water.
I do wonder if some surfers watched this movie and went, if only.
Yeah.
They're like, oh baby.
They want to be like Bodhi and hit that wave.
It'll kill me, but it'll be worth it. So they meet a guy who's already in the station, right? Or the main ship they're going to, like, because they launch up, and then there's like a station or a ship already up there, which has a guy on it, and he becomes like the 4th member. And I will say, this guy and the guy they go up with, like the 3rd person, I'm like, okay, you two are here to die at some point because you're not Matthew McConaughey or Anne Hathaway.
Right, you're not a name.
So it's a white guy and a black guy. So I mean, for lack of a better term, the white guy dies on the water planet, and the waves. And McConaughey is pissed because they specifically sort of approached the planet in a certain way so that they wouldn't be caught in the time difference for as little as possible, so that they're not wasting too much time back on Earth. But then because they have this accident, because Anne Hathaway refuses to like go as quickly as she should. She's trying to get the data off the device.
Yeah, there's a real reason why she needs it and stuff.
Oh sure, yeah, she's not just being stupid or selfish.
Yeah.
But she does cause this delay, which means that they lose like decades of time on Earth
because the wave hits and they're not able to avoid the wave.
And on the main ship, like when they go back up there, the other guy, he's got grey in his beard. He's been there for ages. It's been
decades.
It's been 23 years.
I do love that because she is stubborn and needs to get the data, that we get to see Tars in action.
Oh yeah. He goes to save her.
It just becomes like a rolly thing.
No, it's good stuff.
A ball made of spikes.
So it's like shit, and we use more fuel because the ship had to wait for so long for them to come back. It used up more fuel than anticipated. So it's like we can only go to one of these other two planets. But before we talk about that, we have to talk about the video messages, because it's like, oh, it's been 23 years. There's 23 years of video messages like waiting for you to listen to. And this scene is like it's the I wouldn't say it's the best emotional scene of the movie. I don't know if I'd say it's the best scene, because we have to talk about the docking scene later, because that thing is spectacular. But
right, yeah.
But Matthew McConaughey sits down, and it's like, first it's Timothée Chalamet, and he's like, oh, I met a girl, and he's all excited, and then it transitions to Casey Affleck, yeah, and he's like, oh, we got a baby now, look at the baby, and McConaughey starts like breaking down and crying, and it's very emotional, and it's very,
it's a good performance, yeah.
Murph isn't there. Murph's not sending messages all this time. And it's not a surprise, because we saw that she wasn't wanting to talk to him before he left, and she was really heartbroken about it. It gets to the point where, and this is not like a mean thing, but Casey Affleck's like, our daughter died, like, we've got a son, but our daughter passed away, we're having a rough time, and it's been a long time since I made one of these, but we just had, grandpa's funeral, like, John Lithgow has passed away by this point, which, makes sense, 20 years in the future, of course he has. If anything, I was shocked when they said Michael Caine was still alive, to be honest. But he's like, I kind of have to let you go. And this made sense to me. Like, I get this. Like, at a certain point, he just has to sort of accept him as dead, even if he might not be. Like, on Earth, because he's been gone so long, he just, like, he has to. Like, he has to let go of him. And it's this heartbreaking thing for McConaughey to watch. And it turns off, and he's sitting there, and then it turns back on, and it's Jessica Chastain. So you're like, oh shit, it's Murph.
Good casting. Like, the kid really does look like her.
One of the things that McConaughey said before he left is that by the time I come back, we might be the same age. And that's why she's making this. I thought this was a great motivation for why she finally made a call. It was like,
yeah,
this is why, because I am now the age you were when you left.
And I'm still pissed off.
And I'm still mad at you.
Well, she might also think he's dead at that point too.
Yeah, she might. Yeah, but it's a wonderful transition, because it lets us then follow her on Earth in the new present day. But I love that we don't see any of Earth when they're down on that planet. We don't actually see any of Earth once they launch. Like, once they launch, we stay away from Earth until they come back up at that planet. So you feel the time change. It feels like it's been like at least 30, 40 minutes since you've seen Earth. So when you cut back to it now, and we do see Jessica Chastain, and she's with Topher Grace, who might be her love interest. She's working with Michael Caine, and they're trying to solve this equation problem. And Michael Caine promised that he'd figure it out, but he's starting to get really doubtful, and he's like getting really upset. And then, of course, he eventually reveals that he never really believed that he would, because it's just impossible without some of this data about the center of the black hole, which just there's no way of getting.
Yeah.
But
there's no way to get into a black hole.
Yeah, and of course we get around that by the fact that when they're making their big sacrificial thing to get Anne Hathaway to the final planet, McConaughey like pulls away, but they were always going to pull away for Tars. The idea that Tars could get the data, beam it back to Earth before he like turns off eventually, because he would probably run out of power, I assume.
Yeah, something about this black hole, because it's very stable, may allow for someone to enter it.
A shallow something. They said it was a shallow something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the word was, but yeah.
Called it Gargantua or something.
That was its name. That was the name of the black hole, was Gargantua. When they get to like Dr. Mann's planet, who's Matt Damon, and I actually really loved this twist that he lied. Like he got scared because they kept telling us like throughout the film that he was the inspirational scientist who
was the best of them. He was the best of the best of the best.
He inspired the other 11 to go on this mission where they knew they might never see a human being again, because ultimately they were only ever going to send ships to X number of planets, and they can only send it. Ultimately, it turns out to be 3, and they picked Dr. Man's planet, and it looks like this looks a bit like a nice planet. I don't know, dude. Like this doesn't seem very nice. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty cold, but
underneath the surface,
yeah, the surface is a bit better, and you can breathe down there, so we could turn this into a home.
Yeah, they said the air is full of ammonia, and like even the clouds are frozen.
Oh, I love
which
that.
Which is a great scene.
Yeah, I love that. And it's not even it's like a little moment when they're flying down. But
but it just reminds you, alien world.
They hit a cloud, and it's like they're going through like a clumped up bit of snow where it just kind of sprinkles and crumbles, and it's like, oh, that was interesting.
That's different.
Yeah, I like that a lot. But
it's got a little bit of an Inception thing where it's like there's a solid surface and then another solid surface.
But yeah, he heel turns and tries to kill McConaughey. Doesn't want him to, because when they find out that Michael Caine was kind of lying about Plan A and that it was never really going to be possible, when Murph finds out when Michael Caine's dying, she sends a message, and Tars like gets that from the ship and shows them it. Matt Damon kind of confirms that he knew about this. So this has been the truth since like before McConaughey was involved.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And Anne Hathaway feels guilty because she didn't know this, but she's like, okay, what can I do? What do you want? And he's like, let me go home. Let me go and see my kids and just die with them. I don't want to be out here. And she's like, okay, help us set up the colony and you can take the ship back. But Matt Damon, knowing that he's lying, is like, no, we kind of need that ship to go to the next planet because, I was fibbing.
Yeah.
We can't stay here.
Like, well, they kept talking about how brave he was and how he's the best of us, and how like even like when they were deciding which planet do we go to like Edwards, or do we go to I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. I think it was like something like that. Or do we go to Mans? And like, well, you kept saying he was the best, and here he is saying that there's like we've got 2 beacons saying come here to our planet. Why wouldn't we trust him? And Hathaway's like, well, I mean, the readings, he says they're good, but the readings aren't good. And, it ties back into the theme of love and stuff. He's like, well, you're in love with this other guy, so that might be influencing your decision. And I mean, I like that she was right. And also just like instinctively was right too. And I like also that this traditional hero, I mean, they even kind of cast somebody that we see as a good guy in this role on purpose.
Yeah.
Someone who is normally easy to root for is somebody who just is afraid of dying. Someone who's just afraid that, like he says in the film, that I just never thought of the possibility that mine wouldn't be the planet.
Yeah.
Like I would have to die here.
I like that line. I love McConaughey because I'm an effing coward. Like, I love that moment because it's like, it's the complete opposite of what everyone's been saying about him the whole time. And
Some people are just show. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just calls him what he is. And I think, because we see at the end of the film that the scientist that Anne Hathaway was excited to see actually died. Like, we see her, like, sort of, like, putting, like, a name on, like, a little grave. But it was the right planet. There's a little tent set up, and it looks like, she's breathing the air. It looks far more hospitable.
She's not wearing the suit, yeah.
Far more hospitable in the cold planet anyway. That's maybe even beyond the nose, but maybe it's not actually on the nose because I only just thought of it now. But the idea that, there's the love choice, which, and I think McConaughey does have rights to doubt, like she has maybe been selfish and maybe just wants to see the person, even though her analysis of why man's data seems a slightly sketchy is right. You understand why the other 2 of them are like, I don't know, like you kind of want to see this guy again, that might be clouding your judgment. I kind of like the literal part that the cold choice ended up being a cold planet. Like, the cold scientific choice was this cold planet.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
It's just it's a little touch that popped out in my head as you were talking about like her wanting to go to the other one. But it's the idea being that love led her in the right direction, even though she didn't get what she wanted. She didn't get to really spend time with them. Doesn't look like it anyway. It looks like she found a dead body and buried them. Yeah.
We get just a little. We get the grave. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but it's about hoping. It's about hoping for something and all the rest of it.
Obviously she wants to see him again, but she's still like, she's still the Ripley of this crew, where she's like, this is the hard science I'm looking at here, and the data doesn't add up. And it's very seductive to, believe in someone with a big personality, somebody who talks like, inspires a lot of people and stuff like that. But, when it comes down to the data, it's still, obviously it was the love that was the right choice also, just instinctively trusting the character of somebody that that because you're close to. Also.
Yeah. It's like, because there's almost a little interesting arc there where when they're first talking about these possibilities and McConaughey suspects that maybe she had a relationship with one of them, he asks Tars, like, oh, what was the what type of relationship did her and this guy have? And there's a little jokey moment because Tars is like, oh, I honestly couldn't say. He's like, is that 10% honesty or 90% honesty? The joke being, is he intentionally lying? And he's like, I also have a discretion setting, meaning that, he will keep a secret like that for privacy's sake. And the idea being that McConaughey
is the best.
Like, McConaughey recognizes this connection as a potential flaw. He's asking this because he thinks this might cloud her judgment, so he sees it as a negative, when ultimately, like, in his own story later, it's his connection to his daughter that's going to save the world. It's the love that's going to save everything.
Yeah. And his love for his, passion of science and exploration.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really good stuff. And obviously Matt Damon is infuriating at this point because he tries to kill McConaughey. There's a really great tense sequence where Hathaway's flying the shuttle out to him to like save him, and he's like trying not to breathe to because his head is cracked.
His helmet's cracked, yeah.
Which, I love the line, by the way, because Matt Damon starts headbutting him, and McConaughey says, there's a 50-50 chance this will kill you instead. And he goes, best odds I've had in years. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's a really good line.
I mean, this man, is focused on his survival only.
Yeah. It's like, 50. Like, I thought it was like a 1 in... Like, it's not even just 1 in 12, really. It's like people have to actually come out here in the first place, and then there's like a 1 in 12 chance of them coming to your planet. Like the chances were pretty remote that you were ever going to see someone and be saved.
Yeah. And he thought he was brave, but he was just all talk, even to himself. He keeps monologuing too the whole time, trying to like justify everything that all of his actions and stuff. And
I think works really well in the sense that it feels like it fits his character. One, he's been on his own so long that he probably would talk to himself, or maybe he's just so excited to tell all this to someone that he's unleashing it all. But he's also trying to convince himself that he's justified in what he's doing. Yeah. He kills the other guy. He destroys the other robot. Right. So it's just at this point, I think it's. Actually, maybe there's still the one in the ship that Anne Hathaway can keep, but Tars obviously is with McConaughey when he leaves.
Yeah, he destroyed his own robot because his own robot will probably... I mean, he said he did it for his own survival because he needed the
No, it sounds like it sounds like the robot might fib on him and give some accurate details. But like, there's like a great moment here where he's like pretending to be like, I'm here for you, Cooper's McConaughey's name. I'm here for you. Cooper, you won't die alone. I'll keep speaking to you as you die because I care, because I'm a good person. I'm doing this for the mission. Like, it's all that, and it's good stuff. And then so he's infuriating because he does all this, and then they're chasing him up to the ship because he's going to try and dock with the main ship. Basically, he's clearly not that experienced as an astronaut, relatively, right? And he's going to make some mistakes, and McConaughey is constantly saying, if he does this and he doesn't, the way he's doing this, he's going to like cause an explosion. He tries to tell him this, and Matt Damon is so intent in just doing what he thinks he should do that he just mutes him, and he isn't listening to him. He tries to manually dock because like they've disabled the auto docking because they don't want him to do it because he doesn't know the procedure. And also, if he leaves with that ship, they're stranded. And at this point, they believe he will because he's given them no reason to suspect anything else.
He's already tried to kill them.
I think his death is super effective where he's like mid-sentence, and because he like hits the switch, and then it's like, the explosion happens and he's sucked out into space and there's just silence.
Well, once again, he just thinks that it's not going to be me. I'm not the one. I'm the hero of the story. I can't be the one that dies.
I think he's a warning of arrogance and ignorance. I think that's a clear message with his character, but I think the sound design, the way it just goes silent when he dies, is excellent. And then you have maybe one of the most breathtaking action sequences of the last decade.
The tense moment, yeah.
Because I love the way it's, because I'd forgotten that, like, how it starts where because the explosion sends the ship spinning, and it's going to fall into the atmosphere, and it's not designed to go through atmosphere. It's meant to just be in space.
Yeah, it's like a space station.
Yeah, it's going to be destroyed. McConaughey, like, for lack of a better term, puts his foot on the gas, and Hathaway says, "What are you doing?" And he just very calmly says, "Docking." I'm going to, and it's like, you madman. And that's the thing. From the start of the movie, he's set up that he's kind of a hotshot pilot. Like, he's kind of good at this. But it has to match the rotation of this spinning out of control ship.
It's basically the same thing that Damon did with this extra dangerous element of it's also going to be spinning at a rapid pace, and you have a time element because if you don't do it quickly, it's going to burn up in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's going much faster now than when Damon was doing it. Now it's going super fast, and it's like impossible. You could have
you could pass out from the G-force.
Yeah, and Anna Hathaway does. Anna Hathaway passes out in the other seat just as they're finishing. But at one point, Tars is saying this is impossible, and I almost you literally could just take the quote from Star Wars, never telling me the odds. You could slip that into this scene and it would work. And I'm glad they didn't, because it would make it feel cheesy. And it's not cheesy. It doesn't feel cheesy, and that's why it's so fun. But the organ music's blaring. It's super tense.
Yeah, it's really white knuckle.
Yeah, whenever it cuts back to that wide shot and you see the full thing spinning, and they're trying to match the spinning of it, it feels like this is insane that they're even trying to do this. But if they don't do this, then they're just marooned and dead. Mm-hmm. It's like they have to do it, because if they don't,
goodbye humanity. Also,
yeah, the stakes cannot be higher on both a micro and macro level. They could not be higher. Thanks
to Matt Damon's selfishness.
It's so funny that like 1 year later he was in The Martian. It's so funny. Yeah. I think I joked when
and
I saw.
He was also a surprise Matt Damon in Thor Ragnarok.
Well, that's very different though. That's like not...
Well, yeah, but it was still surprise Matt Damon.
I wasn't talking about surprise. I was talking about astronaut Matt Damon though, because because my joke when that came out, or when the trailer came out, is that he literally just kept his outfit from Interstellar. It just kept the same outfit on when he went to set for The Martian.
That was just his method acting. Was doing Interstellar first.
So we'll obviously we've not done The Martian yet, and we will at some point, no doubt. So
gotta save the biggies.
Exhilarating sequence, and then they make a plan to send Anne Hathaway to. Well, the plan's for them to both go, but like he knows, like fuel wise and chance wise, because they're going to like slingshot around whatever to like give them the because they don't have the fuel to just go the traditional way, so they're going to slingshot around to get the momentum they need.
And he knows at this point that he needs to get data from inside the black hole.
Yes. Which he says he's going to do with Tars, but then he also like
he doesn't know like if he'll be able to do it. It's just going to take a chance.
Yeah. So he like leaves her and sends her off in the hopeful journey that maybe she will start this colony, and Plan B will be a success. And he gets sucked out of the black hole, and obviously he actually ejects from the little shuttle at one point because it's going to like completely implode. Then he falls into like fifth dimension library land. I say library because it's like, because it's from the perspective behind a bookcase, it kind of has like a sort of library look to it. Mm-hmm. We talked about this scene for the most part earlier, but I will just add on to it that I love him yelling, "Make me stay!" Stop me from going, Murph. Like he's begging her. That he at this point he thinks he's made the wrong choice, like going on this journey, and he wishes he never left. Obviously he had to, and obviously when he realizes that he's going to send a message back, and it was always him that was sending the messages back, it's important, and he does that. But it did work for me better this time, because I kind of like, I knew where it was going, and it tied more into the themes of everything better for me this time, I think.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, the visuals obviously are really great. You just have to accept that this is a very, very specific to her and to him and their storyline, and this is all set up for himself, and it's a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around. But if you accept it, then
for me it's not, though, because like it's not like he just fell in here by random. Like the beings, us from the future, picked her and picked this room because it had sentimental ties to them. Like. Yes. So to me, it's not nothing about it's random, and it's specific because they knew it had to be her. So because you have these big, giant, godly hands of us from the future knowing what needs to be done, it doesn't feel like I don't know, like convoluted to me that it is his daughter's bedroom. They picked his daughter's bedroom.
I know. I understand all that. It's still hard for me to just to watch the movie and go, okay, like I don't know, like it's a lot, okay.
It's a lot. There's no denying it's a lot.
But it's still like visually, like it's a beautiful scene. I love the representation of like all the lines of the books, like just looking like strings, just like interwoven with each other, and just flying through it, going through different timelines of Murph and this bookshelf. We only see that one spot. You know, it is a beautiful scene. It's just a lot.
It's a lot. There's no denying that. And then he wakes up, of course, in a hospital, and he's like, "Okay, where am I?" And he looks out, and they're on a space station. This is a space station that's near Saturn, presumably. And there's an implication that there's more than one of these stations that are like huge and filled with life, and it looks like basically just a circular Earth. And that when he looks out the window, you can see like, you know, houses and like gardens going up in the big sort of arc of a space station. There's like kids playing baseball, because there was a baseball thing at the start of the movie. They get interrupted by the storm, so this is like, no, they can play baseball now. The only problem now is that if they hit a good shot, they might hit a window that's above them.
Yeah, it's another Inception thing, right?
Yeah. But so it implies there's more than one of these, because they say that his daughter's it has to travel from another station. So it's like, oh, she is still alive, like, and just barely, because it's actually Ellen Bernstein from The Exorcist who plays Murph in the hospital bed at the end. This was neat. It was like, okay, so like people talked about him in high school. People assumed he was dead all this time because it'd been so long. And then he gets to see his daughter again, and she's this elderly woman who's on her deathbed. She's not dying like tomorrow or anything.
Yeah, but she's surrounded by her family and his family, you know. So he gets to see like, yeah, she's dying, but she still had, their lineage has continued. Oh, of and course, stuff, yeah. And
it's because before he goes in the room, like the doctor or whoever says she's with the rest of her family, and he's like, family, and he walks out. It's like, yeah, she's had kids and they've had kids, and so she's got like, 15 grandkids like there, like standing around her. It's obviously she's happy she got to see him again, and he's happy he got to see her. But she says, "You shouldn't watch me die. I'm your child. Don't watch me die. I have my younger family who's here to care for me. Go and be who you're supposed to be. Go be the explorer."
Yeah. Basically, I forgive you. I love you. You were my ghost. You were there the whole time for me also.
Yeah. Anne Hathaway went out there and will be the same age as you still. So, don't let her be alone. Go and be an explorer and go start the new thing with her. And I love that it never like implies or suggests that they're going to be a love or romantic interest to each other. It's just about, no, don't let her be alone. Don't let her be alone in humanity. And maybe it will become romantic. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But
well, sure, yeah. I guess I sort of picked up on that. Oh yeah, I guess, and she is Anne Hathaway. She's not ugly. She's all right.
But like, there's nothing romantic there yet. I don't even think like him going off to make sure like she's not alone as she starts this colony is like necessarily like, I'm going to go be the husband to her now. I think it's more just. Yeah.
Is there an implication that they can get there like quickly? Also, because like how is the wormhole still there? Is he still able to get to her?
Yeah, like I assume, like he can get there just as quickly as Anne Hathaway did. Like for her, it's the same as him, where all this has happened on Earth. Anne Hathaway's in time the same place that he is, age-wise. I suppose the only reason why maybe he wouldn't be, there's an argument for this actually, is that this second time jump for him when he goes into because he's into the black hole. And then he's like in the whole time sphere and stuff. He wakes up and we've jumped ahead again, because we went from
like 50 years.
We went from Jessica Chastain to
dying Ellen Bernstein.
Yeah, so because I think they joke he's 120 or something like that when he wakes up.
Yeah. So
in theory, you could argue that because Anne Hathaway didn't go in the black hole, that she actually will be like old Chastain's age, like old Murphy's age now.
Yeah.
So maybe like he'll get to this planet and she will have started the colony and there'll be a bunch of like teenagers and stuff running around.
Yeah, I suppose.
Who are all encouraged to have sex because they have to populate.
Lucky them.
Well, they're not brothers and sisters. They were embryos.
Well, yeah, they brought that is the problem that was addressed also by Michael Caine in the beginning.
Yeah, they have to all be diverse so that like. Genetically speaking, so that they can populate and stuff. Well, they're about to have an infuse of McConaughey DNA to like spice it up a bit. So
yeah, he's gonna Genghis Khan it.
Hey, it's only for the future of the human race, right? He's got a duty. Actually, there's a line at the start. Actually, John Lithgow cracks a joke where he's kind of trying to encourage his son-in-law to like maybe get out there and like start dating again. He's like, "Hey, you're meeting that teacher. She's about your age. I think she's single." And he says, "I'm talking about repopulating the planet, young man. When are you going to start pulling your weight?" And I thought, he's already got 2 kids. To be fair, it's not like he's not. It's not like he's not. 2 is a fair amount. 2 is a fair amount of kids to give to the world.
Yeah, he's got a boy and a girl. Nailed it. Nailed it the first time.
So
also, they're running out of food. Like, you don't want to bring too many mouths in.
yeah, why? I mean, they do also talk about population being a problem. Like, there's a lot less people because of like people dying. They do mention that, so I suppose, yeah, but still, if food's limited, maybe balance those 2 things a bit. And later on, we see clearly some of the kids are dying, like they're getting various like diseases because they're breathing in too much crap all day.
Casey Affleck lost a kid, and it looks like his wife is also dying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're jumping all the way back to like the start of the movie here, but we did kind of jump quite heavily into the space stuff. I want to talk about
that's okay.
I want to talk about how much I love the scene, the parent-teacher conference, where because there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of it, where it's like, okay,
It's a lot of world building things.
Your son can be a good farmer. Well, what about college? Well, yeah, but now colleges only take like the top X% because, quite frankly, we need farmers. We need people who are doing work like that, and your son's going to be great at it. Oh, your daughter's also been spreading filthy stuff about the moon landing. Yeah. Which they are now outlawing, saying didn't happen because they don't want to encourage the idea that we should spend money on stuff like this.
Yeah, she's been using her dad's old textbooks, but the new textbooks are, that's correct.
And it's not a more like just philosophical way. Effectively, they're saying you shouldn't dream. Like the world needs to be exactly this way, and you have to serve your function in it. No dreaming allowed. And that's that's the philosophy of the movie, is that no, dreaming is important to who we are. It's what inspires us to go out and do and solve things and fix things, because we can go further. So there's a really nice sentimental message in there. And
I agree.
A little bit in the camera work, I really like some of the shots. Like, see when he's leaving the farm, when he's going, there's a shot that's looking. It's like fixed to the truck, and it's looking as like not the exhaust, but it's the dirt that's been kicked up from the tires, because it's a dirt road. So it's like, it looks almost like a rocket exhaust, right? But the camera shot is very similar to the sort of shot you would get of a camera that's strapped onto a rocket that's leaving space and looking down at the exhaust. So it's filmed like he's like launching, but he's just driving, and
that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Little touch. Really like that.
I was trying to think of anything else I could bring up. Like there's the drone scene, when he's chasing after that, but. It doesn't. Not really a whole lot comes out of it that's important to the overall philosophy of the story.
Yeah, it shows how connected he is with his daughter, because they're both really into it with each other. There's a nice little touch as well. I like when he's leaving to go to this. When he's agreed to go on the mission, and he's leaving home for the final time. Is he looks over and he sort of picks up like a blanket that's on the seat with stuff under it, to check that Murph's not there, because she snuck in the car when he went to like go find the coordinates before. Yeah. And it was a really nice thing that he just had this last little bit of like, he's almost hoping to find her because he wants to see her. He wants to like make it right with her before he goes. He doesn't want to leave her on this fight that he just had with her where she wouldn't accept it and she was crying. So it works both as a relief that she's not stuck onto the truck, but also he's kind of sad that she didn't, because he didn't get one last chance to like say that she make sure she was okay and get her blessing. Yeah, I mean, when I said where the interviews came back into it, basically they've recreated his house on the station as like a museum, and these are basically the little like TV screens that are playing these interviews around, talking about what life was like just before the evacuation of Earth.
Yep, can't forget history, or we're doomed to repeat it on some other faraway planet.
I liked it better this time round. I liked it well enough the first time, because I think the spectacle, the journey. I mean, I guess the only thing we glossed over that I would love to mention, just to tie it to the visuals, is the shots of them going towards the black hole, and the fact that the black hole
amazing.
At a certain point just looks like an orb, it's like a clear orb almost.
Yeah.
As like, because I think other movies, when I see a black hole, some movies will just like, it looks like a portal almost or something like that. Whereas this was sort of like,
it looks like an actual hole that they're going into.
Yeah. I mean, is this scientifically remotely accurate? Is it more accurate than others? Is it more accurate but still pretty like movie-fied? I don't know, but
no, you're right. It looks
cool.
It looks like a mirrored sphere in space, but it's just reflecting any kind of light that would hit it, and which makes sense in the when you think about a black hole. It is very good. It's probably my favorite shot in the movie, actually, or my favorite effect anyway.
And when they're flying towards Saturn, it almost looks like there's no stars. It's just like black, and it looks really cool and atmospheric and stuff. So there's a lot of great visuals like that. I love all the planets. It's proper science fiction through and through. Tara, would you like to rate Interstellar?
Yes, I would. I do really like this movie. I think it's my favorite of the sci-fi movies from Nolan. Although I did really enjoy Tenet a lot too. It's been a while since I watched that. I watched it in theaters, but I will rate it an 8. I think it's very good. I have some, minor things that I just don't enjoy about Nolan's films in general, or just like his choice of cast. But whatever, it's still a good movie, and it's still a great movie even, and it's still.
You're so full of the Hathaway.
It's true. Hathaway is real. I'm not the only one who has it. It's just kind of like McConaughey, I guess. I don't want to repeat myself, but there's just something about her where I didn't realize at first. I'm like, I think I don't like Anne Hathaway, but I can't quite figure out why. And it just sort of grew. And then I found other people who were like that. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I really like The Devil Wears Prada. And I accept her in that movie because I like the film, but it's something about the way she talks. She'll be fine, and then she'll just deliver a line where I'm just like, I don't like that. I don't know. She's
yeah.
Hathaway's a real thing.
All right, so I like it more this time than I did the first time, and I liked it quite a bit because of the spectacle. And I will say, watching it again, the audio visual sensation, like I was like deep into the movie, like I was enraptured, like especially once when but even before that, when they're going through the cornfield, like Hans Zimmer, like the score in this movie just drew me in constantly, and I was in the journey. It felt like I was entrenched in the film in a way that not a lot of movies actually grab my attention the same way that something like this does, where I'm in it, and I'm like, nothing's grabbing my attention aside from the movie. So that can't be understated enough. That is quite special in terms of film, and so many of the ideas appealed to me. Like I say, there's a few things that I would say are not perfect. Like the interview stuff, I think just ultimately feel like they're a bit tacked on, and I would say that I like all the themes in the film. I will say that Anne Hathaway's actual speech about love is a little hammy, and I could like the core point of like them like saying we're not going to the planet you want to because we think you're being clouded by romance. I think that point needs to be made, but her speech about love being this tangible thing that is like we didn't invent, it's a thing. Like, I don't know if you needed that. Like, I think the idea that us being inspired to seek out the connections and that being actually something that guides us, and it's not a bad thing that it guides us, is a good idea. It didn't need that extra little part. So that one scene's a bit iffy, but I love so much of everything else in the movie. And it's spectacular. It feels like a spectacle when you're watching it. So
Sure does.
I'm going to give it a healthy 8.5. So not actually that much higher than your score, but it. I felt really enthusiastic, and like I think it's one of these things where sometimes the first impression of a movie, because it isn't exactly what you were expecting it to be, can make it feel like, oh, I liked it, but I really didn't love it as much as I thought it was going to. And that
Sure.
that leaves like a lingering feeling like maybe it was slightly disappointing. But I think watching it again now without that burden, it sort of it's shown to me how much more of a movie this is than a lot of the other big budget movies that I actually see. And I use Marvel as the example because of the easy example, but it goes for a lot of movies these days. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And Nolan's a director. He's a proper director in the same way that even Shyamalan, I know this is a weird comparison, but one of the things me and Tim said when we watched Old recently is that, you know what, for any faults you can have with this, or how like parts you might think are stupid, he still feels like a director who's directing a movie. He's trying to direct a movie. He wants it to feel like a movie.
Well, he's got a vision that you can say that's Shyamalan.
Yeah, and when I'm watching this, I feel vision, I feel spectacle, I feel a movie, and
I haven't seen Old yet, but I'm waiting for the riff tracks to come out because they said it's going to come out soon.
You should watch it vanilla first. Come on.
No.
I think it's a pretty fun movie. I think you should watch it without the riff tracks first.
I'll consider it.
All right. Well, coming up next time on the show, we've got a season ahead of us. We have a 4-week season that is going to culminate at the end on Alien Day. Until we run out of them anyway. Alien Day, we do an Alien movie from the franchise. That is obviously 426 because of the planet LV 426. So we did Alien 2 years ago. We did Aliens last year. So this year we're doing Alien 3. And honestly, I might recommend Tara watch both cuts because they're so different that it might be interesting to compare them a little bit.
Yeah, I have the book also for Alien 3.
Oh,
that I'm going to read through before we do it.
So that's not next week. That's the end of 90s Alien season.
Yeah. That's
because
the finale.
We're taking that and making it 90s Alien season, and that is going to be the finale. But we're going to start off with something that I have never seen, and that is Fire in the Sky. So look forward to that next time.
I'm excited. I saw this when it came on HBO for the first time, and it really stuck with me. There's a scene in it that really sticks with you, and if you're a lot of people my age had a fear of aliens after watching this movie.
Yeah, I'm a little worried it's a little overhyped because I've heard people say it's the most terrifying thing they've ever seen, and I'm a little worried that I'm going to watch it and be like, what, this?
Well, I honestly, I'm worried about that too, because I'm kind of, I don't know, I've been so exposed to horrible things in movies now. Will it really scare me?
Will it hold up?
Obviously, when it came out, I was very young, and yeah, it's very scary. But I haven't seen it since then. So there's one scene that sticks with you, but for the rest of the movie, I don't remember very much about the rest of the film.
Yeah. So
I am excited to revisit it though.
So Tara's going to pose for the thumbnail. So here we go. Right, your best Anne Hathaway. All right, 3, 2, 1, pose. You can tell when Tara doesn't know what to do because she'll do the smiley face thumbs up.
I didn't take the class on posing.
All right, so yeah, you know what's coming next time. Tara's pose for the thumbnail. I will now thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Born Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman, and Alison M4 Dice. They are Patreon producers. You, of course, that is one of the higher tiers over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But you can support us for less than that and get other things, can they, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus reviews for the Ace. You can find all your favorite B movies. Soon we'll be doing... Oh, I don't know if I should say it yet. Is it okay to say it?
It's okay to say it, but honestly, the worst thing you just said is soon we'll be doing, because it may already be out by now. I don't know.
It might already be out by now.
Yeah, by the time this goes up.
Look forward to The Brain. We're very excited to watch The Brain because it stars David Gale, who is a fantastic actor from Reanimator and was in The Guyver, another bonus movie that we watched that was kind of a gem, and especially him. So yeah, if you're interested in those types of films, we have a whole library over there now. And you also get Screams episodes that are of similar caliber. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews a day before everyone else. And you'll be able to vote on what we watch next month and all the months. So please check that out if that interests you. Thank you.
Yep. There you go. That is the show. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We're in the 150s, going strong. Plenty of movies still to do.
Dang.
That is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer. And I mean it, TARS. Ad Salsa.